Does that then mean that no matter how EU wants Britain to trigger the Article 50, that won't happen until October? Oh, I beg your pardon, that won't happen until you have a new Prime Minister.
Yes, that's right. I think only when, at least that's the current plan, only when a new Prime Minister has been appointed can that Prime Minister then decide at what point to trigger Article 50. According to the timetable that the Conservative Party have set out already, that means that there will not be a new Prime Minister until late September, possibly early October. I think at that point it will be a decision for that new Prime Minister to take. But clearly, that is the only way that the European Union rules allow a country to leave the EU, so that is the route that will need to be taken, and that is a decision for the government, for the new Prime Minister and his or her government to take. So I think that will happen, I imagine, as I said, not long after they have been appointed.
You know, money matters is very key here, and I'm looking at what has gone down, apart from the immigration issue, which is very, very important here, looking at this £8.5 billion annual contribution to the EU by the UK, but there's also a £66 billion that comes to the UK, or that accrues to the UK from tax. If you put that side by side with what they thought they were paying, that's peanut. What kind of decision informed all of that?
Well, the economics of the decision, the economics of the referendum campaign have been very hotly contested, should we say, and there are lots of numbers being thrown around. You just mentioned two of them. There are others that various sides of the argument came up with. There is no doubt, I think, that the UK in many ways benefited from its membership of the European Union, certainly in terms of the trade relationship, the single market. The absence of tariffs and trade barriers was a significant boost to the British economy. Those on the leave side of the argument, from an economic perspective, would say that we can replicate in some way those trading relationships, and we are, of course, open to the rest of the world for trading purposes. So they would argue that we would not lose economically. I think it's very difficult to say at this stage, so soon after the referendum, what the absolute impact of, or the economic impact of the decision on the referendum will actually be. Let's see what happens further down the line. But I would repeat that the fundamentals of the British economy remain very strong, and the UK remains a very good place to do business.
Well, still speaking economically, because, I mean, before that vote, US President did say that, well, if they voted out, they were going to go to the end of the queue. But we also do know that UK is Nigeria's largest source of foreign investment, with assets worth over $1.4 billion. If EU investments in UK shrinks, isn't that going to affect investments, Nigerian investments in UK, and how we do business?
Nigerian investments in the UK or UK investments in Nigeria?
Both.
Both. I think the relationship will sustain this shock. It is clearly a shock. But the relationship is fundamentally strong. Those links, those connections which you've mentioned are there and will continue. Nigerians investing in the UK, Nigerians who are familiar with the UK, comfortable with the way we do business, I see no reason why they should change those practices. Clearly, they need to take business decisions for themselves. But I think given that the fundamentals of the British economy remain strong, given that the business environment remains an excellent one in which businesses, including Nigerian businesses, can thrive, I don't see any reason why that relationship should be affected. And on the other side, British investment in Nigeria, you're right, there is a huge British investment in Nigeria. And again, I don't see that that would change. Those ties, those historical ties, clearly the commercial, the cultural ties, have not suddenly gone away overnight. They remain, and they remain strong, and that's the bedrock of this very positive, very constructive, very beneficial relationship that we have with each other. And as the British High Commissioner here, it's obviously my job to promote that. That's what I'm doing. I don't think that the referendum outcome has changed that. I'm going to continue to work as I have since the first day I arrived here in helping British companies come to Nigeria, look at the investment opportunities, create jobs for Nigerians, and that will not change, and I will continue to do that. And I think those British businesses who are interested in some of the sectors that President Buhari has outlined as his priorities will come in, and are coming in, and will look at the opportunities, and will invest here, regardless of the outcome of the referendum.
High Commissioner, have you experienced any anti-UK sentiment so far?
Since the referendum outcome, do you mean?
Yes.
No. I have had lots of people asking me what it means. I have lots of friends, Nigerian friends, who are scratching their heads a bit, not quite understanding how it could come about. And I've tried to explain it in the way that I did at the beginning of this interview. I've had certainly European ambassadors and friends from European countries saddened, to use the word that the European leaders used with David Cameron last night, saddened at the outcome, but also accepting that this is a decision for the British people, and that this was a democratic exercise which has resulted in a clear outcome, and an outcome which we in the UK, as elsewhere, need to respect. As the Prime Minister said, this is an instruction from the British people, and he and I, as part of that government machinery, will indeed deliver on that instruction.
Well, His Excellency Mr. Paul Arkwright, British High Commissioner to Nigeria, we appreciate your coming on this morning. We'll be back after the break. Join us again.